hear ye. We need unrequited love stories because, like horror movies, they acclimate us to a world in which we have to make hard choices. When you love someone and they don't love you back, you must choose between them and yourself. Stay with them as a friend, and do anything you can to help them weather life because you care about them? Or free yourself and make space for other people? What you choose will depend on many circumstances that many well-known unrequited love stories explore. In A Tale of Two Cities, Sidney Carton decides to stay with his unrequited love interest. The circumstances of his choice include: 1. Sidney Carton is an alcoholic. 2. The object of his unrequited love is a good person. And 3. He feels, perhaps rightly so, he never had a future with or without her. And so, I honestly think he made the right choice, putting her before himself and dying so that she could be with the man she loves. You know, there's something so nobly poignant about unrequited love. The apple of your eye is also the thorn in your side. A source of joy is also a source of pain. That complexity in and of itself is reason enough to explore stories of unrequited love. In addition to that, however, the choices we make in the wake of falling in unrequited love say so much about us. How outside observers feel about the choices we make says so much about the observers. The fact that I agree with Sidney's choice probably says I'm not an optimist. Yet simultaneously, I may be a hopeless romantic. I do not believe we live in a world where a Sidney Carton could fall in love with someone else and be someone else himself. But I do believe that, greater love hath no one than a Sidney Carton, and love is the ultimate goal of existence. Thus, the ultimate complement to Sidney's character, the ultimate testament to his power, is his difficult choice to love unrequitedly. Now however, if our subject were not as discerning as our self-sacrificing Sidney Carton was, I may feel differently. For example, Will from Stranger Things has been shown to have strong unrequited feelings for Mike, the only interesting development in post-season 1 Stranger Things if we're being shady. This unrequited love storyline will never morph into something noble if Will chooses Mike. In my opinion, anyway, Will is a great example of when a character should choose himself. The circumstances of Will's unrequited love story include: 1. Will is a closeted homosexual while Mike is straight and flatly callous. 2. Mike can't even get along with his girlfriend when things get tough, let alone his friends. And 3. While Mike was once passionately caring towards Will, which no doubt shaped Will's image of Mike, Mike seems to be growing out of caring. If Will chooses to stay close with Mike, it will be because Will is unable to let go of the past and embrace the present. In my opinion, anyway. But I'm sure it doesn't feel that way to Will. Even if Will has a fairly healthy self-image, which is questionable, he probably can't wrap his head around the idea that a feeling as strong as his love for Mike could have been based on falsehoods. I mean, maybe it wasn't based on falsehoods. Maybe it was based on the truth of who Mike used to be. But in that case, we get into questions of whether people can change for the worse. We already know they cannot change for the better. We also get into questions of whether feelings are sometimes truer than truth. Because even if Will was wrong about who Mike was, the feeling was real. The feeling should be respected, as an extension of the self. But still, ultimately, if Will is to respect himself, how can he not open his eyes to who Mike is today, not just a straight man but a jerk? How can Will not distance himself from Mike? I think we all have experienced what we thought was a forever love, and we all know how it can shake us to our foundations to realize that the feeling was based on a misconception, or that the object of our feelings has changed. How bone-shattering a revelation that can be. How it can make us doubt ourselves. Some doubt is always warranted. The nature of true love is truly a question for the ages. Whether it is more a feeling or an action. Whether it is our responsibility to cultivate love even when it hurts us to please the universe, or whether the universe would be displeased that we are hurting ourselves. But when you have as strong a conviction as I'll love this person forever because of who they are and that conviction is broken, it can render us incapable of moving, which is worse than going the wrong way. We also wonder what it says about us that we fell in love with someone who was a jerk. See? Interesting questions like this are why unrequited love stories are so necessary. Another example, Quasimodo. The circumstances of his unrequited love story include: 1. He was emotionally abused his whole life and has low self-esteem as a result. 2. His appearance and background will make it difficult to connect with anyone going forward. And 3. Esmeralda is the first person to ever treat him as valuable. His story challenges us to discern how much of his pain is due to losing Esmeralda to another man and how much of Quasimodo's pain is due to his own self-esteem issues. Since he may one day realize his grief was more about him than about her, he must choose, not between respecting himself or respecting his feelings, but between respecting himself or respecting feelings yet to be revealed. It becomes a gamble that, if he does hold on to the pain of loving Esmeralda, it may be for nothing, for a false feeling. Or on the other hand, if he doesn't hold on to the pain of loving Esmeralda, it may be that he is killing a real connection with Esmeralda. Of course, it is possible that Quasimodo's pain is both due to a real connection with Esmeralda and due to his incredibly low self-esteem, but which reason is more true? See, it's not just a choice between himself and his unrequited love, but between fantasy and truth. As another example, take Eponine from Les Miserables. The circumstances of her unrequited love story include: 1. Her unrequited love interest is already a big part of her life. And 2. She even takes it upon herself to act as intermediary between the object of her unrequited love, Marius, and the girl he loves, Cosette. We could speculate all day about Eponine's motives. Maybe she just could not say no to any request from Marius. But me myself, personally, I like to think that she was devoted to the truth, and she saw an opportunity to expose the truth of Marius's feelings. It takes a special kind of character to make that choice, truth over fantasy. In matters of unrequited love, you may also need to take into account the object of affection of your object of affection. Take Cyrano de Bergerac, for example. The circumstances of his unrequited love story include: 1. Cyrano's unrequited love interest, Roxane, marries Christian, after Cyrano helps Christian woo Roxane by writing letters to her. 2. Christian is a good person who dies fighting beside Cyrano in the war. 3. Cyrano felt he had no chance with Roxane regardless of Christian's presence. And 4. Clearly, part of why Cyrano keeps his love secret from Roxane for so long is because Cyrano wanted to respect the memory of Christian. The tears were yours, says Roxane. The blood was his, replies Cyrano. Very poignantly put, as we would expect from Cyrano. After all, it can't have been that Roxane felt absolutely nothing for Christian. They had a physical relationship. The blood was his. And once again, Cyrano felt he had no chance with Roxane either way. So why hurt her? For the sake of truth. Cyrano ultimately chose truth. But I think it's interesting how we can all understand why his journey to truth took so long. In addition to laying bare the considerations one must take, unrequited love stories also make apparent the contrast between happiness and beauty. See, I would say that choosing true love, even if the love is painful and unrequited, makes for a more beautiful story. But choosing oneself and finding new love makes for a happier story. This also must be factored into the choice. Basically, we have to ask ourselves so many questions. Questions like, what is truer? Love that we choose or love that chooses us? Love as an action or love as a feeling? And questions like, if I leave them, did I ever love them? If I never loved them, how can it hurt? If it doesn't hurt, why am I leaving them? Anyway, unrequited love stories are stories about life on hard mode. One must choose wisely between oneself and one's unrequited love. It's a battle of truth versus fantasy, beauty versus happiness, philosophy versus practicality, a game of chance versus a game of skill. An unrequited love story is an epic lesson in life. Plus, between you and me, I'm really into that whole love at a distance idea that was popular back in the days of Twilight and such. But maybe that's another story, since I'm not sure why I consider it to be so inherently noble. But you know, it's not just me. What we are not going to do is forget about Don Quixote.
To love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star.